Today we are delving into some fascinating mysteries that will blow your mind. Do you already have the mark of the beast and you don't even know it? You might have walked past someone with Jesus' DNA and didn't even know it. Who are the members of the Hellfire Club in our society today? Last but not least, the Roman cult responsible for Christmas is revealed in this video. Sit back and relax as we crack open Pandora's box. Jesus the Sorcerer. Okay, brace yourself for this one. According to an ancient Jewish text called the Toledot Yeshu, Jesus, as you've always thought of him, is about to get a major makeover. Forget everything you've read in the Gospels, because this text suggests Jesus wasn't the Messiah. Instead, he was a wizard. According to this alternative narrative, Jesus wasn't born of a virgin, but rather, his mother Mary had a fling with a Roman soldier named Pandera. This book portrays Jesus as a cunning sorcerer and false prophet who deceived his followers. So, for the next few minutes, let's set aside what we think we know and dive into this fascinating alternative story. Jesus' birth wasn't some miraculous event, it was just a regular birth that led to a typical baby. According to the Toledot Yeshu, Jesus wasn't the saintly child we've been taught about. Instead, he was disrespectful, rude, and downright mean to his elders. He was like a rebellious punk, always defying authority. Unlike the Jesus of the Gospels, this version was into dark arts, and even went to Egypt to learn magic. After becoming skilled in sorcery, he returned to Israel, where he used tricks, illusions, and charm to deceive people. He even managed to sway followers from Islam, persuading at least 12 to join his cause. Far from being a symbol of kindness, this Jesus was more like a manipulative cult leader, not much different from someone like David Kesh. I'm not personally making these claims, I'm just relaying what was written centuries ago in the Jewish book Toledot Yeshu. According to this text, it suggests that Jesus wasn't crucified as a revolutionary, but rather as a common criminal, sold out by Jewish leaders to the Romans. It portrays him as a troublemaker who was defiant until the very end, protesting as he was nailed to the cross. Now, are these events accurate or false? Both Christians and Jewish people widely agree that the book is not a reliable source of historical fact. Most scholars believe it was crafted by a group of Jews during the Middle Ages with the intention of casting Christ in a negative light. But hypothetically, what if it were true? What if Jesus truly was a deceitful magician and charlatan? The Hellfire Club. Imagine stumbling upon a plaque outside an old brick building bearing the name, The Order of the Friars of St. Francis of Wycombe. Sounds like a devout Christian group, doesn't it? Well, think again. Despite the noble-sounding name, this order, better known as the Hellfire Club, was founded by an English politician named Francis Dashwood around 1762. Rather than a sanctuary for monks or priests, it was a hub for Dashwood and his associates to indulge in satanic practices. Throughout history, the wealthy and influential have established secretive clubs for nefarious purposes, and this continues to be the case today and likely will persist as long as there's an upper echelon of society. Francis desired to establish his own exclusive club where he and his elite friends could engage in activities considered taboo by society. Most of the members were involved in politics, and while experts have some idea of what occurred within the walls of the Hellfire Club, there's no definitive record. Activities weren't documented, and members kept mum about their experiences. Francis's motto, "Do what thou wilt," essentially granted members free rein to do anything they pleased, no holding back. This motto gained popularity and was later adopted by Aleister Crowley, a notorious occultist of the 20th century. Interestingly, there were originally 12 members in Francis's club, mirroring the 12 apostles who followed Jesus Christ. As I mentioned earlier, there are no official records detailing what occurred within the meeting place of the club. However, there are rumors suggesting they engaged in exaggerated parodies of Christian rituals, made sacrifices to pagan gods like Bacchus and Venus, and participated in lewd acts that are too explicit to recount here. The club faded away by the late 1760s, but similar groups emerged in its wake, such as the Beggar's Benison and the Phoenix Society. The Phoenix Society, in particular, persisted until at least 1954. Interestingly, the underground chambers where the Hellfire Club conducted its rituals have become a tourist attraction today, located not far from Buckinghamshire in England. Paganism on the rise. After a millennium of obscurity, the gods of the Vikings are making a remarkable comeback. Nordic paganism, the same religion followed by the Vikings who raided Paris and conquered parts of England, is now the fastest growing faith in Iceland. It's quite a shift from the dominance of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism that we're accustomed to. In the Western world, it's nearly inconceivable to imagine a society without the presence of Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on doors early on weekend mornings. Yet, in Iceland, this scenario is gradually becoming a reality. Nordic paganism has seen a notable rise, going from around 500 followers in 2002 to 4,000 by 2018. While that might not seem like a huge number, it's significant considering Iceland's relatively small population. Just to clarify, don't they have like 9 people living in Iceland? I was just joking. Christianity remains the dominant religion, but Nordic paganism has secured its place as the second most popular faith. For the first time in a millennium, a Norse temple is being constructed, resurrecting a once-dead religion from the brink of extinction. Pardon my pronunciation, but take a look at the name of this religious structure. Hof Temple. Go ahead, try saying it. I'm sure you'll do better than me. The Hof Temple has been in the works since 2005, but is still not yet completed. Once completed, this temple will mark the first of its kind since the time of the Vikings in Iceland. With a capacity of around 250 individuals, it's designed for conducting Nordic religious ceremonies. However, there's a question looming. Is this just another branch of Satanism? Do Icelanders genuinely worship Odin, Thor, Loki, and the other Aesir gods? According to the high priest Hilmar Örn Hilmarsson, many followers don't actually believe in literal deities like Odin, with one eye, or a thunder god. Instead, they view Nordic paganism as a way to connect with Viking stories, seeing them as symbolic of nature and human psychology. Similar to the Church of Satan, modern Nordic paganism emphasizes traditional values, environmental respect, and tolerance toward others. The Roman cult behind Christmas. As the next holiday season approaches, don't forget about the ancient Roman cult that laid the groundwork for one of the Western world's most celebrated holidays. The cult of Sol Invictus actually originated Christmas long before the birth of Jesus Christ. You might recognize the name Sol, as he was the Roman sun god dating back to the 3rd century BC. By the late stages of the Roman Empire, around 600 years later, he became known as Sol Invictus, meaning invincible sun. In 274 AD, Emperor Aurelian proclaimed Sol Invictus as the primary deity of the entire empire. Interestingly, Emperor Aurelian aimed to eliminate the remaining followers of Jesus, and he came close to succeeding. He constructed a magnificent temple dedicated to Sol and established a devoted following. Before long, the most influential members of Roman society were among Sol's followers. Priests of Sol even rose to prominent positions within the government, and the elite senators would pay homage at the Temple of Sol. Sol's image was widely circulated on coins throughout the empire, and the grandest festivities occurred on December 25th, in honor of Sol. Just imagine the excitement of participating in such celebrations before the concept of Christmas even existed. During Rome's Golden Age, it would have been like to experience Mardi Gras multiplied by 1,000,000. Then, in 321 AD, Emperor Constantine declared the 7th day of the week as a day of rest, naming it Dies Solis, or the Day of the Sun. If you're lounging in your pajamas on a relaxed Sunday morning, you can thank Sol for this leisurely privilege. But hold on a second. Wasn't Jesus born on December 25th? And didn't God rest on the 7th day, hence the concept of Sunday? Prepare for a mind-blowing revelation. The answer to both questions is a firm no. Contrary to popular belief, the Bible doesn't specify Jesus' birth date, let alone mention December. Biblical scholars estimate his birth to have occurred between 4 and 6 BC, placing him in the years before the supposed start of the Christian era. Interestingly, the designation of December 25th as Jesus' birthday didn't occur until 350 AD, making it quite an ironic twist. Pope Julius I is credited with officially establishing Jesus' birthday, despite living some 350 years after Jesus' time. Earlier scholars believed Jesus was born either on May 20th or April 20th. For over 3 centuries, the prevailing belief was that Jesus was born in the spring. As for the significance of Sunday, just consider its name. It derives from the god Sol, who was honored on December 25th. Scholars speculate that the Church adopted this date from Sol's celebration, possibly to supplant his worship. Regardless, Christmas essentially shares its roots with the Roman holiday, both marking the beginning of the new solar year and celebrated annually. Who is the Antichrist? Now let's delve into something darker than the cheerful return to ancient Icelandic traditions. And what could be darker than the Antichrist? Spoiler alert, probably nothing. But who exactly is the Antichrist, and when might this sinister figure make an appearance? According to the Bible, the Antichrist is depicted as omnipresent, mentioned only 5 times in the epistles of John. Rather than being a specific individual born of flesh and blood, the Antichrist is portrayed as a pervasive entity, a concept rather than a single force. It's challenging to grasp such a complex idea based on just a few lines, but consider this perspective and share your thoughts. In simpler terms, consider this passage from the epistles. Little children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have appeared. This is how we know it is the last hour. It might seem confusing and vague, right? Another passage in the same epistle says, "Anyone who does not acknowledge that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist." Essentially, this line suggests that anyone who denies Jesus is the Antichrist. Moving to a historical example, in 155 AD, Polycarp faced a gruesome fate. He was burned at the stake and repeatedly stabbed. I know it's a bit grim, but that's what happened to him. Polycarp, a follower of John the Apostle, was the first known person to use the term Antichrist while preaching in the Roman Empire. He didn't refer to a specific individual, but rather asserted that anyone who denied the Lord was essentially the Antichrist. During the early days of Christianity, symbols like pentagrams and inverted crosses held sacred significance, and the Antichrist was simply someone who rejected Jesus. However, over time, the understanding of the Antichrist evolved. People began to see the Antichrist as a singular figure who would signal the onset of the apocalypse. In the Middle Ages, when the Catholic Church wielded significant power, church elders often accused each other of being the Antichrist, reflecting the shifting interpretation of the term. Arnulf, the Bishop of Reims, grew frustrated with Pope John XV and boldly proclaimed him to be the Antichrist. This accusation wasn't uncommon during the Middle Ages, as other popes like Clement III also faced similar accusations of being in league with the devil. Over time, the concept of the Antichrist has evolved into a dramatic villain figure, but originally, it wasn't used in such a sensationalized manner. The number of the beast, 666, is widely considered the most ominous number in history. But where does this 666 come from? And why is it associated with the devil? In the Bible, specifically in the book of Revelation, the author describes witnessing a terrifying creature emerging during an apocalyptic vision. This creature, known as the beast, bears the number 666. It possesses extraordinary powers, performs miracles, and mandates that everyone in the world must bear its mark. Those without this mark face execution. Scholars have spent centuries pondering the significance of this passage, with many still interpreting the beast as a representation of the Antichrist. On another note, many Christians became alarmed when debit cards introduced the tap feature, fearing that the chip embedded in the card represented the dreaded number of the beast. Throughout history, people have proposed various interpretations of what 666 truly signifies. But let me tell you, the answer has been right there in the Bible all along. It's not even that complex, and I must admit, it's only mildly intriguing. The author or authors of Revelation harbored strong grievances against Rome, particularly Emperor Nero. In the eyes of first-century Christians, Nero was already viewed as the Antichrist incarnate. When you translate Caesar Nero into Hebrew and assign numerical values to the letters, they add up to 666. This occurrence isn't merely chance. In alternate manuscripts of Revelation, penned in languages like Greek and Latin, the number assigned to the beast varied. At times it was recorded as 616, These discrepancies arose because spelling Nero in different languages resulted in slightly different numerical values, although all were close to 600. The mark of the beast isn't indicative of some enigmatic symbol heralding the apocalypse. Rather, it served as a covert reference to Nero, whom Christians regarded with disdain as the embodiment of evil. The troubles of Jesus. You've already picked up quite a bit today about Jesus Christ, like the intriguing idea that he might have had sorcerer-like abilities. But here's another nugget. Did you know Jesus had biological brothers and sisters? In the New Testament, it plainly states that Jesus had 4 brothers named James, Jose, Jude, and Simon. He also had 2 sisters, though their names aren't mentioned in the Bible. Now, you might brush this off without much thought, but hold on. Doesn't Christian doctrine assert that Mary, Jesus' mother, remained a virgin her entire life as part of her devotion to God? This raises questions. Were Jesus' 6 siblings also divine offspring? Or was Mary perhaps a bit more, well, married than she let on? Another intriguing point to ponder is that if Jesus did indeed have 6 siblings, it's reasonable to assume that his bloodline has continued, even if Jesus died on the cross. It's likely that at least one of his brothers or sisters survived to have descendants of their own. It's quite possible that descendants of Jesus are alive and thriving somewhere in the world today, completely unaware that they carry his DNA. This idea of Jesus' extended family is just one puzzling aspect of his depiction in the Bible. Another surprising fact is that Christ wasn't actually Jesus' last name. Christ stems from the Greek word Christos, meaning chosen one. Jesus didn't have a surname, which is why he's often referred to as Jesus of Nazareth in the Bible, to distinguish him. There's one more intriguing myth surrounding Jesus that's worth mentioning. He may have made an appearance in the Old Testament, also known as the Hebrew Bible. Despite the events of the Old Testament occurring long before Jesus' birth, there are suggestions that he might have had a cameo role in those ancient texts. In the Old Testament, there's a mysterious character referred to as the Angel of the Lord. This figure makes significant appearances to key characters like Moses and Abraham. Unlike other angels, this one seems to hold greater importance. He's more powerful and authoritative. Some speculate that this angel could actually be Jesus in angelic form, serving as God's messenger before his incarnation as the savior of humanity. What are your thoughts on the intriguing topics covered in today's video? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments below. And thank you for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and explore more fascinating content.